Well, good morning and welcome to our Tuesday program. Today, we're going to be talking about assisting with grooming and dressing. I'm Ben Ellen with Alzheimer's Orange County, and today I'm sitting in for Melissa Klabe, our Director of Education. And with me is our coworker, Kim Bailey. Good morning, Kim.
Morning, Ben. Nice to be here.
Glad to see you again. We are sponsored this month by Caring Companions at Home, and we appreciate their support. Diane Mondini has been a longtime supporter of Alzheimer's Orange County, and they provide care for individuals in their homes to help keep them at home as long as possible. And so if you would like any information, you can call one of the numbers on the screen and talk with Diane about your situation, and she would be glad to consult with you. So today, we want to get into this subject, which is a challenge for anyone dealing with a loved one, friend, family, whoever it might be, who has any kind of cognitive issues, dementia, Alzheimer's, or some other form of dementia. And Kim's going to lead us through this discussion, and I'll jump in from time to time to ask questions and maybe share a little bit of my experience as well. Kim, let's take it away.
Hi, everybody. As Ben said, I'm Kim Bailey. I'm a program and education specialist with Alzheimer's Orange County. And I'm delighted to be here with all of you this morning to talk a little bit about how to provide assistance with grooming and dressing, along with Ben's assistance as well. I think before we even start to talk about sort of the how-tos, we have to think about some important questions as caregivers, and to consider these questions as we plan ahead, because we know that caregiving can go on for a very long time. So as we think about the people we care for, we have to ask ourselves, what does the person wish to do for themselves for as long as possible? And as more help is needed, do we know what kind of help they would prefer now and in the future? And also, whom would the person prefer to perform more intimate tasks of activities, more intimate tasks and activities of daily living, like bathing, dressing, those types of things, when they do get to a point in the progression of the disease where they need help? Would that be a family member or perhaps a paid caregiver? So, you know, when you think about the big picture and the long journey of caregiving, what's ideal is if you have some honest dialogue in the beginning of the disease trajectory, and if you have things like advanced directives, and if you know your person's wishes about these types of issues. We don't always have those frank dialogues, but if we apply a person-centered approach to care, hopefully we know our loved ones well enough to sort of anticipate their needs. But I think that it's important to kind of think about all these things when we're caregiving, because caregiving changes. The needs change, the needs amplify as the person slowly changes throughout the journey. Wouldn't you agree, Ben?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest challenges for us as caregivers, is we get into a mode of something that seems to work, and it works for a while, and then it doesn't work anymore. And we're back to figuring out, okay, now what do we do? So yeah, that's a big issue.
Absolutely. And in all things, you know, we want to carry out our loved ones' wishes, even if we're not always sure exactly what they are, right? Yeah. So, you know, we think of this disease as a disease of profound losses, and in fact, that is the reality. But what we have to remind ourselves is the fact that much remains, even as cognition declines, and that our loved ones, and I know that there are some professionals online with us, but as well as family members, we all must keep in mind that even as speech is diminished and as the disease wears on, our persons living with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias are experiencing myriad emotions, and they may not always be able to tell us what they're feeling, but they're capable of experiencing things like pride, as well as profound shame and embarrassment. So again, we're talking about intimate topics today. And so this comes into play, and we must do everything we can to enhance their self-esteem and embrace their dignity when we're doing these things with them and for them.
One
And
thing,
they're not
Kim,
always able to communicate their feelings, are they? But I mean, sometimes their feelings come out in behavioral expressions. So we
yeah,
want to anticipate and keep these things in mind. I can see that, Ben, you'd like to add something here.
yeah. Anytime we talk about these subjects, I go back to all the things that I did wrong. We're talking about an ideal, and in reality, nothing's ideal, and we make mistakes. We do our best. We have the right motivations, but we don't always handle things the right way. And for me, with my wife Judy, there were so many times where I thought I was doing the right thing. I'm jumping in to help, and in reality, I was taking away the things that she could do and wanted to do for herself. And the same is true with communication. She was having more difficulty communicating. And so I would jump in, usually too soon, to offer a suggestion or what I thought she was trying to say. And that just was frustrating to her. And I think it really does have to do with loss of dignity, loss. It's disrespectful on my part to not consider what she really wants to do.
Right. Right. Well, I, like you always tell people when you are teaching others about communicating, don't beat yourself up, because everyone's just doing the best they can. And you've been such a great caregiver to your wife. I happen to know that firsthand. And while we're on the topic of communication, I'm going to share a couple of tips here, but I also want to point out that you, Ben, will be doing a workshop coming up on June 22nd. And we will be fleshing out this whole topic of compassionate care, caring communication. And so we suggest that if you'd like to sign up for that workshop, you can get more information at learn@alcoc.org. But basically, do you want to go through some of these tips that you'll be sharing quickly?
Sure.
And then you can expand on them on the 22nd.
Definitely. We'll spend a lot more time on the 22nd. We have a full hour and a half to have a conversation about these topics because communicating and connecting in a caring way, we call it caring connections, caring communication. It's really all about compassion and being sensitive to our loved ones and their abilities. And so one of the things that we recognize is that, number one, we need to slow down. We need to approach slowly, make sure that we are right in front of our loved one where they can see us clearly and know that we're talking to them. If I have my back turned while I'm talking, she might not even realize that I'm talking to her. So approach from the front. I may need to identify myself, even though Judy and I have been married for 37 years now. And I don't know really whether she's clear on who I am, because her ability to communicate now is really very, very limited. And I need to use her name, make it personal. Eye contact is so important for connection. And so that means I need to be at her level. And that's part of respect. I'm not standing over her, but I'm really with her at her eye level. My tone is so important. I like to say that I want to have a smile in my voice. I use my voice to express my joy at spending time with her. And I'm not in a hurry. If I'm in a hurry, that's going to come across so clearly, and it just creates a tension on her part that's counterproductive. There's so many things that we can do that we'll go into in the June 22nd workshop. Distractions, and those can be environmental, like the temperature is too hot or too cold, or it's too noisy, too bright, glaring, and or physical distractions, clutter around. Anything I can do to make that environment conducive to the connection, that's my goal. That's what I want to do, is provide for that connection, because that's what she needs to know, that I'm right there and I'm not going anywhere.
That's great. And circling back to our topic today of assisting with grooming and dressing, you cannot be successful with those tasks unless you have stopped first to establish that vital connection, right, Ben?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is so easy to be in a hurry as caregivers. We've got a long list of things to get done today. But, job one is just to be with our loved one.
Right.
And so that I need to stop and take a breath and just slow down, slow everything down.
Right. I see we've got some additional tips here, providing visual cues and gestures when words are failing, using the actual items, the tools, whether it's a hairbrush or a toothbrush, to demonstrate, when they may not recognize what those words mean, giving instructions one step at a time and then repeating them if necessary. And all the while, providing that reassurance that you're in touch with their feelings and that you're hearing them. All of these things are just so important with these activities of daily living. Absolutely. And one of the things that we see early on in the disease, I don't know if you saw this with Judy, but I know we hear this from many of our families, is that it's an early sign their appearance and their grooming may start to, you see some slippage there. And, maybe you notice your loved one their clothes aren't matching, or they just look a little unkempt in their appearance. And so know that is common in this disease at all stages. And so here's a few tips to help with that. You can use safer, simpler grooming tools, meaning like plastic combs and soft bristle brushes, nothing with sharp ends or anything that people could poke themselves with. Continue to use their favorite products and scents. The sense of smell is pronounced, I think, in lots of people with dementia. So, maybe perfume can bring back lovely memories of the past. Men, their aftershave, all these things are person-centered and make people feel more of who they really are, who they've always been. The approach that we were just talking about, is so key. Performing tasks alongside the person. In this, this image is a little bit counterproductive or counter to what I'm saying, but I think that the woman in the picture is seated in front of a mirror, and so she can see the person behind her. But in general, as Ben was saying, we want to avoid approaching people from behind. We want to really come alongside people, and more being at their eye level is better. As I just said, use a mirror to allow the person to observe what you're doing to them and tell them, what you're doing with them, or in the later stages to them. Walk them through. Next, I'm going to do this. Next, I'm going to do that. speak slowly and clearly and use those gestures and use modeling, sometimes so they can really sort of understand what you're doing every step of the way, and give lots of compliments and lots of reassurance. And I want to say that I was a caregiver for 6 years, and I tried every way I could to turn activities of daily living into full-fledged activities that were pleasurable. Uh, Grooming, bathing became an activity. I called it a day of beauty. And it wasn't just a shower, it was a massage, and it was doing her hair and doing her makeup, and, really waiting on her hand and foot and making her feel so special, because she was special and deserved that. And so any way you can enhance, these activities, doing someone's nails, all of these things can be real tactile pleasures. The bath, the shower, not so much with most people, but that's a session for another time. Yeah, but giving lots of compliments along the way and reassurance is very helpful. Hands-on assistance, this is probably something that you're experienced with, Ben, since Judy's been involved in the disease process for a long time. Do you want to talk about this?
Sure. Letting her see, and the example that comes to my mind is brushing teeth. And so instead of giving instructions, I would talk about what we're going to do. And I would say, let's brush our teeth. And we're standing right in front of the mirror. I have her toothbrush, I have the toothpaste, and I start with mine. I do my toothbrush, and I put the her toothbrush in her hand. So she has the sense of touch, of controlling, and put toothpaste on her brush. And then I would, as I lift my toothbrush, I help her guide her toothbrush to her teeth. And at that point, it would kick in, and I could just see it in her brain. Oh, I know what to do with that. And she would start brushing her teeth. So it only took a little bit of guidance, a cue to start the process. And so we'd go through that. We'd brush, and I'm actually purposely extending that because, as you mentioned, the ability to maintain a level of grooming and self-care is declining. So I want to make sure that we're brushing as much as possible. And then we're done, and I would guide her to take her toothbrush, rinse it, get some, little cup of water. And then I would mimic taking the water and swish, 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 and hold it to her. So modeling and cueing all along the way, explaining, okay, time to rinse, so forth.
Perfect.
The issue over confusion, razor versus toothbrush, and what I've seen more as an example is something like a tube of cortisone cream for itchy skin is so easy for our loved ones to mistake that and use that for brushing teeth. So it's important, it's incumbent upon us to manage that, to keep the work area as clean and simple as possible so that those confusions don't happen. Keep those things completely separate. So when it's time to brush teeth, there's only one item, the toothpaste, the toothbrush, the items that are necessary for that particular activity.
Yeah, Ben, I remember, my person loved brushing her teeth and took great pride in her teeth because she had all her teeth still into her 90s, and she was fond of telling bragging about her teeth and her dental care, but so I would just observe, for many years, and then or for several years, and then I caught her trying to put the liquid hand soap on the brush, and that's when I knew it was time to really, provide more supervision. So it's like I was saying earlier, as the disease goes on, you just step in more and more, or at least provide more and more oversight. And, things change. And so you have to change, and you have to change the environment. And as you said, clear away everything that could possibly confuse them. And then the other issue we had with toothbrushing was that she had zero short-term memory. So she would brush her teeth and then turn around and 2 minutes later say, well, it's time to brush my teeth. So, and of course, I didn't want to remind her that she was forgetting. So she would often brush her teeth like 5 times before she went to bed.
And she enjoyed it, right?
But she enjoyed it. So I thought of it as an activity, but I was afraid she was going to brush the enamel right off of her teeth.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that was a great example, Ben, and I'm sure, a lot of people struggle with that. So thanks for sharing your experience with Judy. And let's talk a little bit about dressing, and I'm sure that you have experiences with this as well, because this starts to change as well. And again, keep in mind that the issues are different for early stage, middle stage, later stage. But just in general, people are going to need at any stage additional time to dress. So for example, if you've got an appointment, a doctor appointment, you just sort of learn that you can't expect someone to get ready quickly. And like Ben said, if you're hurrying them, that tension is not good. And you leave yourself sort of open for maybe seeing a behavioral expression as a result. So always give yourself extra time. And then what else do we have to watch out for, Ben?
Well, in our case, Judy always had great pride in what she wore, how she looked, and an amazing wardrobe that she wanted to use. And so if she's getting ready for something, she would get out at least half a dozen different outfits. And then she's stuck because she couldn't choose which one she liked. And then some of the things that she wanted to wear were simply not appropriate anymore. Pants that didn't fit or were complicated with buttons and zippers and things, and yet they're still in the closet, even though she hasn't worn them for years. So simplifying the choices for dressing really makes a difference. And then once you identify something that works, like for Judy, it was pants with an elastic waist.
Yeah.
No more buttons and zippers and belts, because that was too complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really simple, and you find one that works, buy half a dozen of them.
Right. So paring down the wardrobe and simplifying it are things that I'm hearing you say we can do, and not in front of them, right? We don't want them to see this activity, but that can open the door to making wardrobe choices easier for them. And we don't want to take choice away from them, but we do want to simplify for them, and then just offer them some limited choices so that they're still in control, right? Because you mentioned that earlier, that sense of wanting to feel in charge. Of course, I mean, good grief. If I felt like someone else was telling me what I was supposed to wear and then trying to dress me, I can't imagine feeling more embarrassed, or stupid. I'd feel stupid. That would be very shameful to me. So all of these things are really great in terms of helping to enhance someone's dignity, right?
Yeah, let me introduce another thought here that we'll talk more about in the communication workshop. Um, Open-ended questions like, what do you want to wear? Um, at some point, and this is where you have to pay attention, be sensitive. Um, as long as that works, great. But at some point where you see some hesitation, some confusion, frustration starting to escalate, then it's time to transition to a new mode. So for us, it would be narrowing it down to two choices, as you said, make it as simple as possible. And let's just say it's sweaters. And I would take two sweaters that I know she likes, right? The ones that she didn't like, they're gone. They're no longer in the closet. So it's two things I know she likes, and I hold them up and I say, do you want to wear the red one or the blue one?
Right.
And she can look at them, she can touch them, and invariably she would go, ooh, I love that. And that's just a moment of pleasure that we want to take advantage of.
Right. Right. And then as far as the actual dressing process, our goal is to allow the person to dress on their own for as long as possible. So, we can actually help a lot with that in a subtle way. We can lay out their clothing once they choose it, and we can do that in using sequencing, because sometimes people will try to put clothes on in the wrong order. So by handing them the articles that they need first and allowing them to put them on, maybe over time using some prompting and cueing. But again, listen, folks, I know it's easier just to get them dressed. And I know we see this a lot in residential care, just out of pure necessity, because you're caring for multiple people. But if we can, and particularly at home, we want to let them do for themselves as long as they can, because that old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it, rings true, particularly in dementia care. And people just feel better about themselves when they're, in charge. So, more tips, if we didn't already say it, as well, Ben did say it, provide simple, comfortable clothing with no zippers and complicated buttons, but sweats to wear at home are really great, pull-on pants, simplifying that closet, as we said. I just said laying out clothes in order, provide step-by-step directions, slip-on shoes like moccasins, etc., are great. And then, lots of smiles. Oh my gosh, you look fabulous in that red sweater, as you go along. And then, just keep in mind privacy, dignity. If you are a professional, let's not have a lot of people in the room. Let's identify a caregiver who has a rapport with each of, with a particular resident. Let's close the blinds and, let's know our residents. As I said in that first slide, hopefully we know enough about our persons to understand their dignity and modesty and privacy issues, right?
Yeah.
And then we can use pictures as cues in the bedroom to help them, because you can say, pull out a pair of socks. People like to, again, be sort of in charge of this process as much as possible. So here you see a great illustration of how they've used labels as well as pictures. So they're getting, nonverbal cues that they can relate to, so that they can continue to be part of their own dressing process for as long as possible, even when language is fading. And you can use labels like this in other areas of the house for other activities of daily living. For example, labeling things in the bathroom, the drawer where you keep the hairbrush and comb, that sort of thing that can help to enhance these tasks.
Yeah.
Something to add, Ben?
For Judy, one of the biggest frustrations was just the faucet. because she couldn't remember which was the cold and which was the hot. And, our initial reaction sometimes is, what do you mean?
Yeah.
We've been doing this all our lives. But the reality is it becomes more and more confusing. And so I did labels,
Good.
cold, hot. But then there was a point where simply understanding the written word wasn't working anymore. So now colors, the label is blue for cold and red for hot. And that helped a little
Right.
bit for a while. And the challenge, as we've said before, is that things change. And so we have to find new ways
Right.
to assist. And often that means we're doing more and more things for them, but with a sensitivity for dignity, respect, to allow our loved ones to do as much themselves as they can.
Absolutely. And we carry that through the progression, always keeping safety top of mind, because in the end stages of the disease, we are providing full assistance because we need, to make sure that people are safe, right, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So any other thoughts that, we're at the end of our slides. I'm just trying to think if there are any other things that you would like to add.
I just
And
want to emphasize what you said about compliments. And again, this is dependent on our knowledge of our loved ones. The more we know about their likes, dislikes, the routines that they're comfortable with, the better able we are to assist them in a way that gives them a sense of comfort, assurance, so to think, maybe even not consciously, but I know how this works. And as much as we can do that, is the better. Judy has always had beautiful hair, still does. And so I always mention, wow, your hair looks great today. Oh, I like how they fixed it. Didn't they do a great job? Do you like it that way? And I'm phrasing my question as a yes or no,
right.
simple as possible. And I can just see the pleasure that gives her to be complimented on something that's important to her.
Absolutely. And I'll just add as a way to end my remarks today that, the lovely woman who I cared for got up every day and got dressed and had her lipstick on. And have to kind of laugh because she wore lipstick the same color that I wear. And I know this is a woman thing, but my lipstick's important to me. I don't really feel, even on days when I don't wear makeup, I have my lipstick on. And she was the same way. And so even though she was in her 90s and didn't have family anywhere around and no longer really had living friends or people to visit her, every day it was like she was ready for company, even though unfortunately there wasn't any company coming. And so I respected that. And again, this is the person-centered approach. And it meant so much to her dignity and self-respect to always be ready at the drop. And I think it was a generational thing too. She was ready at the drop of a hat to go out or to receive company. And she always, looked a particular way and it always looked great. And so I took a lot of pride in making sure that happened for her. And so, and this is so important, I think, for all of us. But
And they may
anyway,
seem like little things, they're little things from our perspective,
yeah,
but from their perspective, they're big things.
absolutely.
And they can
Thanks
go
for
a long
having
way.
me on today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. We want to thank one of our partners, Caregiver Resource Center. They provide lots of great free services to families who are affected by any kind of dementia. And they do have services in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So we would encourage our viewers to get in touch with them as well. And of course, our helpline is always available. And that number is here on the screen now, 844-373-4400. We have some terrific coworkers who staff and answer calls and provide information and some counseling. Family visit or family conferences can often make a big difference. So take advantage of our helpline. Great services there. We have a wonderful Facebook page. I always learn things about what's happening in our office from Facebook. So take a look at Facebook. And of course, our website has tons of information. We want to thank our sponsor, again, Caring Companions at Home, Diane Mondini. We appreciate their support very much. Get in touch with them if you'd like more information on support services in your home. So Kim, any last thoughts today?
No, just want to thank all the caregivers for the amazing job that you're doing caring for your loved one or for clients who are living with Alzheimer's and other dementias. It's difficult work, but it's so satisfying. Thank you.
It is a hard job to be a caregiver. And again, we don't get everything right.
But that's okay.
I always say, yeah, whatever happens is okay.
Yeah.
We practice, we keep trying it. We make mistakes, we try it another way. It takes perseverance, but we do it because we care. That's what we're all about. So thank you all for joining us, whether you're live on Facebook or you're viewing this later on Facebook or our YouTube page. We're glad you've taken advantage of this as a resource, and we hope we can provide other resources for you to support you on your journey through dementia. So thanks again. Thank you, Kim. Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.